50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
I'm back in Montana, second time in a couple weeks, which is fine by me, because this place is awesome. I'm back at the Cat's Paw, and I say hi to this guy again, who remains, caught by Tom Hogan. Let's start off with a hand here in Montana, which, looking back, I hate how I played it. I'm in the big blind and defend a $7 open from the cutoff. There were two limpers from earlier, and they come along as well. I think I could have gone for a 3-bet bluff here and possibly taken down the money in the middle without seeing a flop. Oh well, now we see some face-up cards which come 10, 8, 3. We flop top 2. I'm first to act and check, which on the flop is fine. Middle position goes ahead and leads out for 10, to which the cutoff responds by raising it up to 30. Now here's my next mistake. I just played this hand too frickin' passively. I flat the 30. I should have 3-bet here both to isolate the button and target the overpairs in his range. My flat invites middle position to come along and we go multi-way to a turn of the 5 of clubs. Shouldn't change much as it doesn't complete any possible draws that would arrive here, and I finally snap out of this passive play and choose to fast play my top 2. I bet 70. Middle position gets out of the way with what was likely a busted draw, then button goes ahead and calls the 70. River peels off the 6 of spades, and I make my final mistake of the hand. I check it to the cutoff. Why? He's only got 100 and change left, just jam for it. He'll call with his overpairs. Checking it over to him opens up the risks of him checking it back. Thankfully he does decide to throw his chips in the middle and I snap call it. I'm obviously good here, but man. It worked out this time, but there's really no need to slow play this. I do know I have to work on my fancy play syndrome. This hand was a perfect example of that.
Oh, wow! Wow!
It's 20 minutes later, and with King Jack, I flop top 2 again. This time I do elect to fast play it, and win a tiny pot when my opponent folds. Oh crap, you again. I open it up to 12, get one caller, then it folds around to the player to my right who chooses the nuclear option. Ha! No, I'm out. Ace-8 of clubs in the cutoff. I call a $12 open from the low jack, button comes along, so does small blind, then big blind sees a squeeze opportunity staring him in the face. He makes it 50. It folds to me, and I make a player-dependent defend here. The 3-better, I've noticed, would be a decent dude to play in position against. All others fold and we go heads up, which is exactly the scenario I was hoping for. Flop comes 7-6-6. A board which heavily favors me as I double-flatted pre-flop. I'm going to be the one with all the 7s and 6s, as well as hands like 9-8 suited and 5-4 suited. Big blind makes a motion to his chips, but elects to check. If he had a big overpair, he wouldn't have hesitated to c-bet, so there's my opportunity to take a stab at it and try to fold out his ace-king and ace-queen type hands. I bet 45. He chooses to float with his likely 2 overcards. Turn peels off a third 6, and he checks again. I'm going to keep the pressure on his overcards and bet 70, as I'm also the one who has all the small pocket pairs which would have just boated up. This time he believes my story and lets it go. We get this one through and he claims King-Queen of Hearts. Funny enough, we actually had the best hand. Value bluff for the win. I pick up this beautiful hand under the gun, and being out of position, I'll have to earn this pot. I open things up to 12, which gets called by +1. Gets to the hijack, who was our opponent on the last hand, who decides on a min-click raise to 24. Folds around to me. I look at +1 stack, and there's about 100 and change in there. I look at hijack stack, same thing, leaving me with only one move.
1, 2, 3.
All in.
Feels.
You don't care.
Nice.
+1 gets out of dodge, and hijack makes the call. No more action to 5 cards. It's a run out of 7, 4, 5, 9, 9, and we're good against ace-jack offsuit. I'd then go on a set mining operation with pocket 5s, which would then be unsuccessful, and I'd be forced to fold it facing too much aggression on the turn. I pick up ace-8 of hearts on the button and face an open to 7 from the hijack. Low end of my button 3-bet range, but I go for it. I make it 25. Big blind cold calls, which then incentivizes the hijack to defend his open. We go to a flop of 8-4 deuce rainbow. A dry flop which happens to hit my actual hand nicely. It checks to me and I bet 30. Big blind calls this bet and the original opener, the hijack, gets out of the way. Turns another 4 and brings in a full rainbow. Once big blind checks it to me again, I assume I'm just swimming in fold equity, so I bet 55 and I'm right. He quickly releases and I take this one down. We then get the slight upgrade to ace-9 of hearts in the hijack. I'm first in and open things up to 12, to which the small blind responds by making the tiniest legal raise possible to 22. Sure, let's play ball. It's 10-9-6 with one heart, and I've got middle pair with a backdoor flush draw. He checks to me, taking out overpairs and likely 10x hands out of his range, so I take the opportunity to stab at this one for 25. He comes along, so now I think he's likely floating with 2 overcards again. This is that same opponent. Turns a pretty good card, the 7 of hearts, gives me the nut flush draw. He checks to me again, he's got 86 bucks left, which I'm gonna put max pressure on. I rip it, and he goes into a short tank. He decides to gamble with his likely holding of 2 overcards, and it's looking like we're in good shape. The river though is awful. It peels off an offsuit 8, putting us straight on the board.
That's it. So get them all set up.
Which likely means we're chopping. Oh, except his 2 overcards happen to be Queen Jack, so he drilled the nuts. Alright, shake that one off. Next up I've got the ducks in the hijack. Low jack limps, I open things up to 15, which the cutoff and the limp and low jack call. Flop comes 6, 7, 8, which is quite the dynamic board. Low jack checks, I bet 20, and both my opponents come along. Turn comes a king. Low jack checks, and I make a passive error here and check. As played, I'm the one with all of the strong kings in range, so I should have kept my foot on the gas pedal. Cutoff rightly senses the weakness and fires out 45 bucks. Low jack folds, and even though I've basically announced that I don't have a king, I think I could still be good here with my pair. He's got hands like jack 9 to ace 9 in his range, which is an open-ended straight draw. He's also got ace 5, which could be played this way as well, and is the other side of the open-ended straight draw. I don't have any removal to these holdings, which is good in this case. I call the 45 with plans to check call on the river if the straight misses. River peels off a 6, pairing the bottom card but doesn't complete the straight draw. I check, and my opponent bets out 100 bucks. I do hesitate at first, but decide to stick to the plan and I call it, especially getting 3 to 1. He actually does have a busted straight draw because one of his cards was a 4, but unfortunately the other one is a king. He announces, just a king, and I say, well, a king is good, man. He thought he was bluffing, but turns out it was one of those value bluffs. I lose this one and get back down to nearly even on the session. That's kind of the theme here in Montana, it seems. Run hot, then bleed it off. Not too long after that, I pick up King 4 suited myself, and taking inspiration from my opponent's win with King 4 suited, I try it out. But unfortunately, to no avail. This one ends up being against the same guy in the end, and there's a possibility he sees this, so shout out to you, man. There's an open from under the gun to 7, and I call with jack 9 of clubs from the button. That guy, on the small blind, comes along as well, and we go 3 ways to 10-7-4 with 1 club. All I've got going for me here is a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw. But it's nice being in position where you get to see what your opponents do first. They both check it to me, and I take a small stab at it for 15. Wouldn't mind taking this now, but small blind does make the call. The turn, hello, is the 8 of spades, and we drill our gut shot. I've got a nicely disguised nuts here. He checks, I bet 25 for value, and he calls it. River comes a deuce, which is a complete brick. He checks again, and I go with about 2/3 pot for value. Unfortunately, he doesn't pay me off this time around, and I only get semi-revenge on him for that pocket deuces hand. I've got King 8 of spades on the button and raise it up to 15 over 1 limper. Big blind and the limper call. We go to 5-3 deuce, which the big blind leads out into for 10. The other guy calls, and I float with plans to try to steal the pot if a scare card shows up. A scare card does indeed show up. It's an ace. Both opponents check to me, and given that I'm the pre-flop aggressor, this card is a nice one to bluff with, especially knowing any 4x holdings are unlikely given the passive action. I fire 45 and do indeed get this one through. Unfortunately, that was the last hand I got to feature from that session. Our table got short-handed and this bar breaks those games rather than continuing to deal to a short table. Everyone affected gets put on the list for a seat at one of the other two tables, but with both those tables being full and with no signs of anyone getting up anytime soon, I go ahead and call it a session. So yeah, kind of an uneventful poker session. No crazy pots or anything, but man, this is a fun place to play. If you find yourself in Bozeman, check out Seed Open at one of the bars in town. The people are awesome and it's a fun environment to play in. See those 4 George Washingtons accompanying Ben Franklin there? That's my profit. And I go meet my flight crew for some New Year's festivities with my absolutely massive win.
That's a chili pepper. 3, 2, 1. Hey!
Morning everyone from Bozeman, Montana on January 1st, 2024. I hope everyone had a fantastic and safe New Year's Eve. Just want to give you early supporters of my channel a quick shout out. You guys are awesome. Thanks for believing in my content. And I plan on 2024 being a big year for the Poker Pilot. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button because I plan on putting out a lot of cool content this year. And I'll see you next time.